What's up all you Spider-Man loving dudes and dudettes, STACY here, and I am back again to give you guys another Retro-Shiz look. Wait, no, this would be a Re-Retro-Shiz look at the present, but going off what came before in the past. Whatever, it doesn't really make sense. We are totally checking out the brand new Marvel Legends Spider-Man the Animated Series, quote-unquote, retro line, and this is very exciting. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. They have beautifully recreated the Spider-Man packaging from the old days, utilizing the Marvel Legends figures, like everything, even the little yellow boxes, the blue, for the bio. It just, they absolutely nailed it. 100% well done. So very cool to see. They got a new Daredevil. This is one we've not gotten before. Actually, we haven't gotten one of these for quite some time. We got Gwen Stacy / Mary Jane, with a little bit of a here, where my dead girlfriend's sort of clothes kind of deal. And then you have a Norman Osborn Green Goblin. Lots of thoughts on this Green Goblin coming up, just FYI. And feel free to screen grab these. You can read all the bios. You got a Peter Parker that's more Ditko than it is Christopher Daniel Barnes, we'll just say. But that's the beauty of what they're doing here with these. It's very much, and this is not, for me, it's Kragov, not Maxwell Dillon. Just FYI, even though it says it on the back. But here's a look at old Spider-Man packaging and how it lines up with this new retro edition, and it's very cool. You had this little sneak attack, you had the web trap, it all fits beautifully. I wouldn't mind, going forward years from now, you want to do like web trap, sneak attack, what have you, that would be awesome. I'm just saying, because there's a lot of cool Spider-Man figures that deserve the retro treatment, and also, maybe kind of sort of, maybe hopefully, fingers crossed, sometime down the line, we will get actual recreations of the actual character designs from Spider-Man the Animated Series. So for the sake of this video, I am mainly going to talk about Spider-Man the Animated Series and how these figures work. I'll give some review elements to this, but these are all figures that I have wanted, so I'm not going to go too heavy into like, oh, this doesn't work yet. The articulation's fine for me. We all know how these figures are going to go. Most of them are repaints, redos in some way, but I'm going to pull out a ton of old Toy Biz figures, a ton of recent Hasbro figures. We're going to sit back, we're going to relax, we're going to have a good time. This is a look at the brand new Hasbro Marvel Legends Spider-Man the Animated Series, quote-unquote, / comic book series. This is Spider-Man Re-Retro-Shiz. And just before we get started, I want to say, if you like any of the figures we're about to go over, you can get them off of Entertainment Earth. I'll have links in the description below. That's where I got mine from. They shipped them fast, shipped them safe. Do highly recommend them. The links help the channel. Much appreciated. Enough about all this. Let's talk some Spider-Man retro figures. And of course, first up, we have the Norman Osborn version of Green Goblin. And I want to start off with this guy just because he's fun. He's got bright colors. Whoa, those are some big pupils you got there, Norman. Neogenic recombination is a heck of a drug. No, in all seriousness, the figure is nice, the sculpt is nice, it is a repaint, but those pupils are huge. It bugs me. I don't really care for that, we'll just say. But I really like the purples, the pinks. Comes with a really nice unmasked Norman Osborn head and a pumpkin bomb. And he comes with his glider as well. Now this particular glider has been reformatted to fit the new Demo Goblin stand, or Demo Goblin, how I like to say. So if you have a variety of different stands, you might be able to find one that fit. He also has a porthole on his back. Not all fit, but the Demo Goblin stand does fit rather nicely. It keeps him nice and sturdy. You can put the pumpkin bomb in his hand, and you can really have a lot of great poses using this Green Goblin. Now, I will say this, in terms of putting it towards Spider-Man the Animated Series, they did a great job. He does have that little flap now underneath his neck to where kind of the costume kind of bunches up, so I'm glad they included that piece. But I think it's really with the Norman Osborn head that it really emphasizes. Yeah, he could have used a little bit more red, up there in the hair just to make it that much more those weird cornrows hair that he has, you know what I mean, in the old Spider-Man comics. But again, really well done. The colors, though, for whatever reason, make me kind of think it's more hairy as the Green Goblin, let's say, in terms of Spider-Man the Animated Series. And a really cool thing is, if you have the Electro of this wave, you can swap out the hands and give him those old Goblin blasting gloves. You know what I mean? When he's like, whoosh, he does his little... You've seen Spider-Man the Animated Series. Now, in terms of the glider, what I think would have been really cool to see was if instead of doing the gray, they did a purple glider, much like he had in the animated series. And I mean, just this alone, if you have the old wing glider Hobgoblin Pumpkin Bomber, it just looks amazing. This figure does look good on the old Toy Biz stuff, so I really can't complain. And you can fit him on that old glider. He won't hook into the actual little boot holsters, but you know what? Display him well. He looks great. And here he is lined up with a bevy of older Toy Biz, Hasbro, Green Goblin figures. And I have to say, in kind of looking at all of them now, especially, you know, I mean, they're all classic in their own ways, but they're a bit goofy. This one, though, you can't go wrong with this. This is still one of my favorite Green Goblins. This one as well, still good for its age. Too dark, I think, in its coloring. This one kind of looked like junky Green Goblin, to be honest with you. So if the eyes were just a little bit better, I would say that this is a perfect new Green Goblin, both for animated and comic sense. I would have loved to have seen like a Jet Blast accessory, maybe alternate hands, a Harry Osborn head. Now that would have been just icing on the cake. But if you do have the Gwen Stacy figure, just stay away from Bridges, or depending on what universe you're in, animated or otherwise, you got Mary Jane as well. In either case, I think you're definitely going to like this figure, but he does have his issues. Now next up, we are going to be looking at the Gwen Stacy / Mary Jane Watson figure. You kind of get a 2-for-1, and just in terms of applying it to Spider-Man the Animated Series, Gwen Stacy technically never showed up. We got a variant difference for her at the very last 2 episodes of the actual series, where she was in fact married to an alternate Earth version of this jerk right here. But in all cases, while we can't say, oh, this is Spider-Man the Animated Series Gwen Stacy, this is most definitely comic book Gwen Stacy. And we'll get to Mary Jane in just a second. But she has really nice accessories, and she looks great. This is a great representation of what I think of when I think of comic book Gwen Stacy, old school, Peter Parker's first girlfriend. Hair is sculpted beautifully. This is actually really nice. Flowing, she looks elegant. She looks good. This is a good looking Gwen Stacy, and she holds her accessories very nicely. I like that they gave her a Trapper Keeper and a Midtown High School yearbook. That would be the perfect type of accessories for a character or figure like this. And if you have the J. Jonah Jameson figure, the chameleon with the head swap, he looks great holding the Daily Bugle newspaper. Do you want it cooked or raw, right? You gotta get your Ed Asner impressions going. Here's where this set is just a little bit off, right? Let's say this. It comes with a Mary Jane head, all right? We all know what happens to Gwen Stacy, so it's almost like a twisted, like, hey, you want to wear my dead girlfriend's clothes sort of deal. You can actually swap the heads for the last Mary Jane Watson out of that 2-pack from Toys R Us, and it looks good. I think that the skin tone does match up for both of them, so in that sense, it does work. But this is strictly, for me, in all accounts, this is Gwen Stacy, and now you just have an extra Mary Jane head for that particular body. Also keep in mind, one of the Mary Janes has freckles, and whereas the new one does not. Here is Gwen Stacy lined up with her old Toy Biz counterpart, and of course the Spider-Man the Animated Series Mary Jane as well. Gwen Stacy, well, let's just say I'm glad we got an update on her. And Mary Jane, if they want to do a later retro wave for Spider-Man, put Mary Jane in that particular costume, that dress, all day long. Here's where we're going to get dark, right? Like I said, we all know what happens to Gwen Stacy. So this is actually what she died in, right? And just in the attention to detail, her hands, right? Her hands is that kind of rigor mortis, like opening kind of hand. And the other one would be an item holding hand. So you're sick, Hasbro. But you can get the new Spider-Man going, and it looks good. You can do that old scene straight from the comic books. So in either case, yes, she's not based on Spider-Man the Animated Series. Yes, she's in the Spider-Man animated packaging, but the retro series invokes both, and you can't go wrong with this Gwen Stacy. Or should I say Deborah Whitman. Now, hear me out. If you have a pair of glasses hanging around, throw some glasses on her, and you get Spider-Man the Animated Series Deborah Whitman. Just saying, yeah, it's a bit of a reach. But hey, if you get a break-in from the Lizard and he's stealing the Neogenic Recombinator and you totally think he's kidnapping Dr. Kirk Connors, well then, yeah, you could do a good setup with Peter Parker and Deb Whitman. I'm just saying. And next up we have Peter Parker. And again, in sticking with the animated series, we're going to be doing a bit of a Gwen Stacy and going more towards the comic book look, especially with this head portrait. If you know artist Steve Ditko's work, yeah, this is pretty much a perfect recreation of how he used to draw Peter Parker. He also comes with an alternate head and a camera, which the alternate head is very, very cool. It's like when he goes into Spider Sense mode or inner monologuing mode, something like that. But I wish it would have kept the glasses. That would have fit the motif a little bit better, being that the alternate head has the glasses as well. Half glasses, that's all I'm saying. But this Peter Parker, again, not being so much Christopher Daniel Barnes as it is more comic book Peter Parker, does look good. Jacket, the shirt, he's got the dark pants on him. He holds his camera really nicely. I would have liked, if you could get a little bit more, like, naturalistic, like, holding the camera up, that would have been just excellent, right? Of course. But it still works. One thing about the camera, which we'll talk about in just a second, it's missing a little certain something, I think. But in terms of matching him up with, let's say, older Toy Biz figures, things that have come before, this one, I think, works the best. This is an old McDonald's Spider-Man, the animated series toy. It just works well. He's holding the camera. Yes, when it comes time to flip the head, he gets the half mask. Now, that really never happened during Spider-Man, the animated series. It always used to go to that weird Spider Sense. Never used to half mask it kind of thing. But when you flip, quote unquote, this new figure's head, right, you get the half mask. It is on the opposite side, but it does look good. I really like this. Now, yes, in the Toy Biz, we did get Peter Parker from Spider-Man, the animated series. I do have a lighter colored brown, but both of them came with a camera with a strap, and I think that that's really the key element that's missing here. Not all the time did Peter Parker have a strapped camera, but just kind of keeping it with the whole Spider-Man, the animated series motif. I think it's definitely missing a strap, and it does look good around his neck, so he doesn't have to hold it. In terms of a unmasked Spider-Man, yes, you can swap the heads every which way, and I think they do look good for the most part. Maybe the glasses head doesn't fit perfectly for the more musculature body on Spider-Man, but you know what, it looks good, especially when you got a Spider Sense extra accessory going on, thanks to Mate Date on Instagram. I'll put a link in his site below, and you can grab yourself one if you'd like, but I've had this forever now, and it just looks good. It looks good both with a Peter Parker half head, and it looks good with a Spider-Man. We'll get to Spider-Man in just a second. But in terms of just setting him up, having pictures taken of Gwen Stacy, Mary Jane, what have you, it's an excellent Peter Parker figure, and it's one that I think fits the classicness of Spider-Man. Next up is the electrifying villain known as ELECTRO, good old Reinhold Kragov. I know it all. You're so quick to type in that little downstairs area. No, this is Maxwell Dillon, right? We could say the original Electro is Maxwell Dillon, but because we are alluding to everything and anything Spider-Man the animated series, Electro did show up towards the end, right? And he was the son of the Red Skull Reinhold Kragov. He fought Captain America, Spider-Man. You need to go watch the show. So in that sense, yes, in either case, whoever's under the mask, it is a very good Electro. This is an Electro that really just beats all other Electros. You don't need another Electro. He's perfect. I love the paint. I love the costume. I love his little electric mask going on. He comes with 2 electrifying hands. He's getting ready to power up. He's like, oh, I'm trying so hard to power up. And then, boom, he's got some sparkles effects going on. But in all seriousness, no, I like that it's like a translucent sort of electricity. It just looks cool. And we have seen this before, but it works really well. Sure, I would have loved to have seen new effects, but this is an Electro we've all been wanting, and to kind of pose him with Captain America, Red Skull, Spider-Man, what have you, yeah, you can achieve a really nice animated sort of setup for Spider-Man the animated series using this character. Get a flight stand for him, he's going to look amazing. Grab your Game Gears, he's going to go really well with that modified Sinister Six back from the 90s, you know what I mean? Bring batteries, don't forget. That Hobgoblin, man, he's awesome looking. Blast from the past, a lot of different Electros over the years. We had the original Toy Biz one. Now this is when he kind of got souped up for a particular storyline. We did have more of a classic look. I do like the mask on that one, and then we had the most recent one that's the most recent sort of costume that he has. But nothing beats classic Electro, so I highly recommend this one. This one is great. It's a great setup for Sinister Six, Spider-Man the Animated Series, comics, just a cool figure in general. Of all the characters out of this wave, you're definitely going to need him on your villains shelf. Next up, for all you Matt Murdock lovers out there, we have the 90s Armored Daredevil. And what better says a 90s animated Spider-Man type wave than a 90s costume? A very 90s inspired costume. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, he met up with Silver Sable's Wild Pack, got his costume ripped to shreds, and now he's got an armored set of Daredevil attire. Comes with several accessories. He looks good. This is actually a costume that reading comics in the 90s, this was pretty much a lot of different storylines. So I do appreciate this. Also, we haven't had one in quite some time, and they did a really good job with the paint. It's a really nice, glossy, cherry metallic paint, which you don't see a lot with Legends these days. I wish they would have done it with the silver shoulder pads and all the gauntlets and such, but he looks good. I gotta give it to him all day on this one. This one is one of my favorites from the wave. He does come with interchangeable baton sort of wrist gauntlets. You can say, oh, look, he's popping them off one by one. You swap them out for the ones without the gauntlets. It looks good. He's got his two sticks. Put them together. This is what Daredevil always comes with. So it's a weapon that we've known for quite some time. The extra head sculpt, the unmasked, it looks a little bit too big for this costume. We've seen this head multiple times. I think they just recently used it for Scott Summers. I know I have it for other Daredevil figures, so it's not the best. You pair him up with Wilson Fisk. You can pair him up with Silver Sable. A lot of different 90s inspired characters, so that's pretty much the Marvel Universe. But yeah, he looks good going up against this Wilson Fisk Kingpin figure. Like I said, this is the first time in a very long time we have gotten an armored like this, and I still have my old one with his little grapnel gun. That is a great looking figure. It's a little surprising that this costume wasn't used on Spider-Man the Animated Series. You know what I mean? Like, typically 90s they would have done something like that, but you can use his grapnel gun for this new figure as well if you want to have some fun with it. There are quite a few Daredevils in my collection. Now, these aren't the only ones. These are the ones I just pulled out, but you can have my earliest one, this Toy Biz. He's my favorite. I still love this guy. Took a lot to get him. You know what I mean? Then, of course, you had the armored one. I still really like this Marvel Legends old school one. There's just a lot of great ones. I even like the Walgreens. I know a lot of people can still find this on the shelves. I don't like the Shadowlands one. Partly being because he has very loose joints on this figure. However, you get to see the glimpse of all these different Daredevil costumes. An all-black ninja one, like the one from the Netflix, that would be a cool one to do. So, in either case, this is just it's a cool Daredevil. I'm glad they made this. This is a new character, technically, for my shelf. New costume. So, whatever you're trying to do with your Marvel collection, maybe recreate some Fleer Ultra trading cards. Who knows? Everyone remember that? Venom versus Daredevil? That was a cool card. The Spider-Man looks good. Partner's in danger. You're going to want this Daredevil. Which finally brings us to the Spider-Man of this particular Spider-Man animated wave. Who would have thought there'd be a Spider-Man in this wave? And only one, right? Crazy. But this guy is rad. Very much. You tell me this is Spider-Man, the animated series, I'm totally good with it. It comes with an extra head, some hands. Love the line work all over this guy. And he's got new articulation, in case you didn't know. So much articulation, in fact, that they still forgot to paint the pins blue. That's a big thing. Come on. We got to figure this out. Somehow, some way, the hands really do interchange well. Nice thwipping action. No webbing for this guy. Stop with the Spider-Mans with no webbing. And yeah, he's got a crease in his head. A lot of people are not liking that. I, on the other hand, I could care less. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I guess, don't have the amazing Yamaguchi or something like that. It's gonna be okay. I'd rather have webbing and painted joints. Know what I mean? But anyways, this guy looks amazing, especially when showing him off with old Spider-Man the Animated Series figures, multi-articulation, head swappage. Yeah, it's the nostalgia, right? And if you have a mate-date Peter Parker head, like I've had for a while now, and you finally have a Spider-Man body that it fits, and it fits well, you got a truly Spider-Man animated Peter Parker, and it looks amazing. Pair that up with the Rebob Leto Venom heads and Lizard, and you got yourself one heck of a Spider-Man the Animated Series collection. I kid you not, it looks fantastic. The Spider-Man, he's great. I love the articulation on him. Swinging, web swinging through. It'd be nice if he had webbing, I'm just saying. But, you know, putting him in display with all the bad guys, doing what have you. You can even put him with a little bit of a modernized Madam Web's Secret Wars Spider-Man setup. I'm just saying, swap this guy out for the Octo Spidey, and you pretty much got a good set going on. This just makes me happy. You know what I mean? Like, if we could get, right, if you're listening, Hasbro, if you could do a Legendary Riders type of set with Madam Web and then redo the Armored Spider-Man as well, we're going to be great. That just looks fantastic. I have had so much fun checking these figures out. I have been looking forward to them. Yes, they've got weird quirks to them, things that could have been worked out better. Daredevil, I really, really like that figure. If you're not swapping heads with Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane, this is a great Gwen Stacy. Peter Parker, I like him as well. He's very cool. Can't go wrong with this Electro. He is just a must-have for the shelf. And of course, Green Goblin, you're going to do very well with that guy. Even though his pupils are way too big, the Norman Osborn, the colors, the glider, it makes up for it. Build the figure pieces. That's what I'm saying. That's what we need to start seeing for these retro carded figures. I opened these. I didn't want to, but you have to. You know what I mean? Like, they're so cool on the old cards. So I'm just saying, we got to start doing it up. More weapons, more accessories, things to that degree, head sculpts. There's a lot of stuff that can be done, and I want to see it, and I especially want to see some painted joints for the Spider-Man figures, and webbing. We got to see webbing, but all in all, I had a great time. Spider-Man, the Animated Series, hopefully that'll make a comeback soon, right? I've been hearing X-Men as well. So I'm curious to know what you guys think about these figures. Do you have them? Do you need to get them? And again, if you'd like to, I'll have links in the description below. You can pre-order them from Entertainment Earth. Great store. They'll ship fast, yada, yada. I'm going to leave you guys with that. As always, drink some great coffee, eat some great food, but most importantly, remember that with great power comes great responsibility, and the responsibility not to just blow a bunch of cash whenever you like it. There's too much good stuff coming on, so pick and choose accordingly. I'll talk to you guys soon. Adios.